I still wake up tasting cordite and betrayal. The night my father looked across the table and said, "You're a doormat, Elias. Always have been. At least your sister keeps this roof over our heads." Something inside me cracked open like a round through bone. I was 34 years old, 9 combat tours behind me, and I realized I had been bleeding money into their mouths for a decade while they smiled and called it love. My name is Elias Kane. This is the story of how I became a ghost in my own family, and how I finally learned to haunt them back. It started, or ended, depending on how you count, on a Sunday that smelled like lemon polish and lies. Mom had dragged out the blue-rimmed plates, the ones we only used when company was coming or when we needed to pretend we were still a family that had company. Dad sat at the head of the table like a king who'd forgotten his kingdom was built on my direct deposit. Mom kept pushing the same 3 Ps around her plate in slow, guilty circles. And my little sister, Lena, 28, ring light glow, the girl who turned gratitude posts into rent money, couldn't stop refreshing her phone under the table. Dad chewed, swallowed, wiped his mouth with the back of a hand that hadn't done honest work in 12 years, and delivered the line he'd clearly rehearsed. "You know what your problem is, Elias. You're a doormat. Always were. Look at Lena. She's the one paying the bills around here. She's the one we lean on." The room did that thing where sound just stops. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to choke on its own tick. I laughed. One short, dry bark that tasted like rust. I said, very softly, "You mean the $5,000 I wired last quarter for the new HVAC? Or the $2,800 I sent in February when the truck died? Or the mortgage payments that have my name on them for the last 74 consecutive months?" Dad didn't flinch. He shrugged like I'd asked about the weather in a country. "What money?" he said. And Lena, God, beautiful, broken Lena, looked down so fast her hair curtained her face. But not before I saw the swallow. The one that always came right before a lie. That was the first fracture. But trust me, it wasn't the worst. I need you to understand who I was before that night. I was the kid who learned early that silence is cheaper than screaming. Our house growing up had 2 volumes, Dad yelling or nobody talking at all. Mom taught piano in the living room to kids who could afford lessons, which meant we could almost afford groceries. Lena was the sunshine, student council, honor roll, the laugh that made teachers forget she was late again. I was the shadow who fixed the leaking faucet with YouTube and duct tape, who took the night shift at the gas station so Mom could stop picking up double students, who enlisted the week after graduation because the recruiter promised dental and I was tired of watching my mother pull her own molars with pliers and prayer. First deployment, I was 19. I sent home $400 the day I finished boot camp. Mom cried so hard she couldn't speak. Lena sent me a video of her jumping on the new trampoline I'd apparently bought the family. I watched it on a cracked phone in a tent that smelled like feet and hydraulic fluid and felt like the best big brother on earth. 400 became 1,000. 1,000 became whatever was left after Uncle Sam took his cut. I built a system. Auto transfers from whatever dust-blown hellhole I was standing in. I told myself, this is duty. This is love with compound interest. They told me, "You're our hero." I believed them. I came home on leave once and found the kitchen remodeled, white shaker cabinets, that expensive quartz that looks like marble had a baby with a cloud. Lena spun in the middle of it like she was on a home improvement show. "We manifested this," she said, laughing. Mom tried the old move, the lemon face, the soft voice that always made me fold. "Elias, we never meant to burden you." I laughed again, and this time it hurt my throat. "You didn't burden me, Mom. You erased me." Lena finally spoke. Barely a whisper. "I didn't think you were keeping track." 4 words. They detonated harder than anything I ever heard in Hellmand. "I didn't think you were keeping track." Because I was the safe one. The quiet one. The brother who would rather send another grand than start a war at Thanksgiving. I stood up so slowly the chair didn't even scrape. I laid the printed spreadsheet in the center of the blue-rimmed plates like I was serving dessert made of bone. 92 pages, bound with a binder clip. Title page in bold, Contributions, Elias Kane, 2015 to 2024. Total at the bottom in red, $147,836.42. I watched their faces as they read their own lives paid for in my blood. Dad went purple. Mom went white. Lena started crying those perfect influencer tears that never smudge mascara. Dad found his voice first. Get out of my house. I was already moving. But the real explosion didn't happen at the table. It happened 3 weeks later at 2:43 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand like a dying insect. Unknown number. One photo. A positive pregnancy test lying on a bathroom counter I paid to remodel. Text from Lena. I'm keeping it. And before you ask, no, it's not yours to fix this time. I sat on the edge of my rack and base housing and stared until the screen burned my retinas. Because that's when the final lie revealed itself. They never needed my money. They needed my silence. They needed me to stay the ghost so Lena could be the saint, so Mom could be the fragile artist, so Dad could be the proud father of a successful daughter instead of the man whose son kept the lights on from the other side of the planet. The baby wasn't the twist. The twist was that there was about to be a child raised in a family that had no idea how to stand up, because I had been their spine for 10 years. I didn't answer the text. I walked outside and stood under a sky so clear I could see the Milky Way like spilled salt. I breathed until my lungs stopped shaking. Then I did the only thing left to do. I canceled every auto transfer. I closed the joint accounts. I took my name off the mortgage I'd been paying while they told the neighbors Lena was the hero. I built a new account labeled Elias Only. First deposit, the exact amount I used to send them every month. I bought a steak. I slept 8 hours. I didn't answer a single call that started with, "We have an emergency." The fallout was biblical. Mom left voicemails that began with tears and ended with guilt sharp enough to cut glass. Dad posted passive-aggressive Facebook memes about kids who forget where they came from. Lena made a 9-slide Instagram story about toxic masculinity and financial abuse that somehow never mentioned the $147,000. The extended family group chat became a war zone. Aunts I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. Blood is thicker than money, Elias. I muted it. Then I left it. 2 months later Lena showed up at my apartment unannounced. No ring light. No filter. Hair in a knot, eyes swollen, belly just starting to curve under an old hoodie that used to be mine. She stood in the doorway holding a paper bag like a peace offering. I brought groceries, she said. I have groceries, I said. I know. I just didn't know what else to do with my hands. I let her in. We sat on opposite ends of the couch like strangers negotiating a ceasefire. She cried. Real tears this time. The ugly kind that leave salt tracks and snot. I didn't mean for it to get this big, she whispered. It started so small. Mom would say, don't tell Elias about the spa day, he'll worry. Then Dad started introducing me as the one who takes care of things. And it felt good. For once I wasn't the kid who needed rescuing. I was the rescuer. I didn't say anything. Just listened to the quiet hum of a refrigerator I paid for with money that now stayed in my own account. I told everyone the truth at Grandma's birthday, she continued. I stood up in front of the whole family and said, Elias paid for everything. I just let you think it was me. Uncle Ray dropped his fork. Aunt Claudia started praying out loud. Dad wouldn't look at me for the rest of the night. She laughed, wet and broken. Grandma raised her glass and said, about damn time somebody grew a backbone in this family. Then she made me Venmo you $50 right there at the table as a start. I almost smiled. Almost. Lena pulled an envelope from the grocery bag. Inside, cash. $600 in 20s, wrinkled like they'd been carried in a bra for weeks. It's not much, she said. But it's mine. From my actual job. Not captions. Not sponsorships. Actual editing work. I've been taking every gig I can get. She hesitated. I have ultrasounds on Thursday. I know you don't owe me anything. But I'd like you to be there. Not as a wallet. Just as my brother. I looked at the envelope. At her shaking hands. At the faint swell under the hoodie that was going to be a whole human being who deserved better than the stories we'd been telling. I took the envelope. I'll be there, I said. But Lena. The meter's running. On everything. Truth. Money. Trust. All of it. She nodded so hard I thought her neck would snap. Some nights I still sit on the balcony and watch the lights come on across the base. I think about the man I used to be, the one who thought love meant never letting them feel the fall. I'm not that man anymore. I still help. When the need is real and the ask is honest, I send what I can. But now they have to look me in the eye and say the words. No more ghosts. Lena sends $50 every Friday now. Sometimes with a screenshot. Sometimes with an ultrasound photo. Sometimes just the word sorry in the memo line. Mom texts thank you with actual punctuation marks. Dad still won't speak to me, but the mortgage gets paid when the bill comes to my email instead of disguised as an emergency. And me. I bought a second-hand guitar. I'm learning songs that don't have marching cadences. I go on dates without keeping my phone on the table like a grenade with the pin half pulled. I still don't know if I've forgiven them. I just know I've stopped punishing myself for their choices. So I'll ask you the question that keeps me awake when the desert wind rattles my windows. When the people who are supposed to love you best only love the version of you that bleeds quietly in the dark. Do you keep bleeding? Or do you finally stand up, let the blood dry, and walk away before there's nothing left of you to give? Tell me in the comments. Because some nights, when the baby kicks against Lena's ribs and she texts me a heartbeat video with no caption at all, I still don't know what kind of man I'm going to choose to be. I'm Elias Kane. And for the first time in my life, the only person I'm carrying is me.